right, guys, yesterday we talked about introductory dependent clauses. We mentioned how they many times start with a clue word, a subordinating conjunction that I affectionately call an awubis word. Today we're going to talk about other situations that also follow that pattern of opener, comma, sentence. That opener is extra information. It could be a dependent clause like what we studied yesterday, or it could be just a phrase or even just one single word. So we're going to talk about how other things also fit into that same pattern. So the first is when we see a prepositional phrase. And we're going to use prepositional phrases. They're an easy way to combine sentences, but we have to know how to use them and punctuate them. Okay? So prepositional phrases. Okay? Prepositional phrases are like this. And it's a little bit difficult at first, but if you will memorize the prepositions, all of these words are prepositions. You can sing them to the tune of Jingle Bells. Like aboard, about, above, across, after, against, along, among, around, at, before, behind, below, beneath, beside, besides, between, beyond, but by, concerning, down, during, except for, from, inside, oh, into, like, near, of, off, on, out, over, past, since, through, throughout, till, to, toward, under, underneath, oh, until, up, upon, with, within, and without. Now I know my prepositions, of that there is no doubt. Hey. Right? Even me, with my terrible singing voice, can memorize those prepositions if I put them to music, okay? Also, you might notice they're in alphabetical order. And so as you're looking for them, if you think, I think this word might be a preposition, just go look. I would definitely write these down and put them in my notebook. Put them in my notebook so that I can refer back to them quickly. So here are the things about prepositions. First of all, they cannot be alone. They're like babies. We wouldn't leave a baby alone in a sentence in a room. We're not going to leave a preposition alone in a room. Prepositions are always followed by a noun. The noun is like the babysitter. The baby always has a babysitter. Always has an adult or an older person taking care of it, right? Following along behind it, cleaning up after it. So a preposition plus the noun is what we call a prepositional phrase. Remember, prepositions can't be by themselves. They're always followed by a noun. So those two things together, preposition and the noun and anything between them, that's the prepositional phrase. Prepositional phrases are nice, but not necessary. Let me say that one more time. They are nice, but not necessary. They add things to the sentence. They add detail. They add description, but they're not necessary for the sentence to exist. So when something is nice but not necessary, it can be removed. It can be taken away, and we're still going to have a sentence left over. So for example, the dog barked at me. At is a preposition. It's right here in the preposition Jingle Bells. Okay, so the dog barked at me. At is the preposition. Me is the noun or pronoun that follows it. In yellow, the preposition plus the noun, that is the prepositional phrase. If I were to take it out, I would still have the dog barked. The dog is the subject, barked is the verb. This prepositional phrase is just telling me who the dog barked at. It's extra information, it's helpful, it's nice, but it's not necessary. Down the street, a man walked by a big dog. Down is right here in the song. That's a preposition. So down the street is the noun that goes along with the preposition. So down the street is a prepositional phrase. A man walked by a big dog. By is a preposition. But by concerning, by is right here. It's real little, but it's a preposition. And then dog is the noun. Notice, like, there are other words in between the preposition and the noun. So all of that together is the prepositional phrase. If I took those yellow parts out, I would still be left with a man walked. Man is the subject. Walked is the verb. That's a sentence. This is the necessary piece. These in yellow are nice, but not necessary. I can still have a sentence with just a man walked. Now, do the prepositional phrases add to the sentence? Absolutely. They add clarity of where this is happening. They add clarity of what he's walking by. But they're nice but not necessary. So street is not the subject, dog is not the subject, man is the subject, and he walked is the verb. Okay? So prepositions, again, you're never going to have a preposition by itself. You're always going to have a noun that follows it, just like an adult. The babysitter follows that toddler, that baby everywhere. The noun is always going to follow the preposition. And when I say follow, I mean we read left to right, so it comes after the preposition. Okay? Moving left to right. And remember that prepositional phrases are nice, but not necessary. So how do we punctuate prepositional phrases? Well, here's the good news. Most of the time, prepositional phrases don't require any extra punctuation. The only time they might is if the prepositional phrase happens to be at the beginning of the sentence. Okay? So the only time that they're going to need some extra punctuation is if it happens at the beginning of the sentence. That seems familiar, right? During the darkest and coldest nights of winter. During is our preposition. Nights is our verb. Of is another preposition. Winter is the verb. The noun. Nights and winter are noun, sorry. But remember, everything in this yellow is extra information. So when we have extra information coming at the beginning of the sentence, we're always going to put that comma after it. And then we have our sentence, I feel lonelier than ever before. I is the subject, feel is the verb. What pattern does that look like? It should look familiar because it's the same pattern as yesterday. It's an opener, comma, sentence. So when we talk about that, we look at the beginning of the sentence and notice preposition. It follows the same rule as in awubis. A prepositional phrase to begin equals a comma within. When I take off the prepositional phrase, I should have a sentence left over. And sometimes there might even be two prepositional phrases to begin the sentence. The comma goes after the second one. You will be able to hear it. Once you get used to this pattern, you'll be able to hear where it goes. In the heat of the moment. In the heat is a prepositional phrase. Of the moment is a prepositional phrase. So in the heat of the moment, comma. It's never a good idea to make a big decision. And when I read that, if I read and use the punctuation marks as my road signs, as my traffic light, I'm going to pause when I hit a comma. In the heat of the moment, it's never a good idea to make a big decision. And then here's our subject, it, and our verb is. That's why the subject is never within the prepositional phrase. The heat and the moment, that's not the subject, okay? Because a prepositional phrase is extra. It's extra. I don't need it. I can get rid of it. My sentence is what I need. It's never a good idea to make a big decision. That is what I have to have. This is extra information telling me when I shouldn't be making that big decision. The subject is actually in the sentence, in the leftover sentence after the comma. So right now you're going to take a break. You're going to answer some questions where I'm asking you to find the prepositional phrases. Okay? So find the preposition first, then you'll be able to find the prepositional phrase. And we're back. So hopefully you did a great job with those prepositions and prepositional phrases. But now let's talk about how do we punctuate if it's just a single word. Okay, we're going to use the same pattern because sometimes sentences will open with a word that's extra. Usually that word is a transition from the sentence before. And they could be words like, for example, consequently, well, yes, no, thus. Thus is really fancy sounding. Indeed, unfortunately. Those words are usually transitioning us from a thought before or a sentence before. And so we need to have a little comma after. So we're going to punctuate those introductory words just the same as before. We're going to use that same pattern, opener, comma, sentence. Remember that opener is extra. The sentence is what we have to keep. So consequently, comma, Sally did not pass English. Consequently is extra. Sally is our subject, did not pass is our verb. Yes, comma, you may go to the game. Yes is extra. You may go to the game. You is the subject. May go is the verb. No, Joe did not call. No is our extra. Joe is our subject. Did not call is our verb. And you'll notice if I'm reading it out loud and I'm pausing at that comma, you can start to hear where the comma goes. Consequently, Sally did not pass English. Yes, you may go to the game. No, Joe did not call. Okay? For example, a cat is a feline. So, we're going to take a short break, and I want you to answer the questions about introductory words. The last thing that we might need to punctuate when we talk about introductory phrases is sometimes sentences begin with a verb or adjective phrase. And it's extra. It's just giving us extra information. Giggling to herself, comma, Brittany slipped the thumbtack onto Emmanuel's chair. Giggling to herself tells us some extra information about the kind of person Brittany is or the kind of feeling she's having at that moment. But instead of saying Brittany giggling to herself slipped the thumbtack, we just move that to the front because we want everyone to know that Brittany thinks this is really funny. So that phrase is going to come first. Clapping wildly, comma, my mom attracted everyone's attention. So that verb phrase is coming first. Cheered by his performance, Katrina beamed with pride at her son's football game. This is extra information. Katrina is the subject, beamed is the verb. Shuffling down the hallway, Bradley mumbled to himself. Shuffling down the hallway tells us how Bradley is moving, but it comes before the subject Bradley and the verb mumbled. So remember, this in red is extra information. We don't have to have it. It's just giving us more detail. What's in green is the sentence that we have to have, the subject and the verb. Okay? So we are going to our last section of questions that you're going to answer. You need to make sure to answer them and be sure that you submit your assignment when you are finished so that your teacher can look over it and make sure that you've done all the right things. If you have any questions, remember, opener, comma, sentence. The opener is extra, whether it's an extra word, an extra phrase, an extra clause. Look for those clue words like prepositions and awoobus words. And remember, an awoobus to begin, comma within. A prepositional phrase to begin, comma within. Be on the lookout for those. Always check the first word of the sentence and see if it's something that's required or if it's something that's extra.